we go. I see the flashing red light. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. My clock shows half past. We'll give everybody a minute or so if they're connecting to audio, and then we shall jam. Here's some folks coming in. Hello, Kim. Welcome, Kim. Kim's got her camera on too. We like that. See real faces. Everybody's got their cameras on. Oh, this is lovely. It's people. We're also people starved these days. Faces.
Oh.
Faces that move and respond when I speak.
Hey, Jerry. Hey, Kim. Sarah. Well, we lost somebody. Hi.
Excellent. All right. 1 minute past. Let's do it, shall we? Welcome, welcome, welcome once again to the Pragmatic Institute Ask Me Anything with a Pragmatic Instructor series. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And as if on cue, my dog is defending me from the Amazon package man. So isn't Zoom Live fun? Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for turning your cameras. See you. This is, of course, an Ask Me Anything session, which means the questions as you have them. We've got some pre-submitted ones, but if you have a clarifying question to any of those, or if you think up your own along the way, go ahead and toss it out. You can speak it live, you can type it in the chat, and then I will toss it over to our instructor, whichever way you are most comfortable with. I've got to give a shout out at the top to the Pragmatic alumni community. If you haven't checked that out yet, absolutely go and do it. This is the online community where you will find all of the resources you need to pump up your career, the Pragmatic Institute genre. You will find research here, you will find connections, you will find friends in your industry, and most importantly right now, we have now included it as a complimentary gift for your lifetime to anybody who takes or has taken one of the Pragmatic Institute online product classes. That's a part of the package now, so be sure to jump in there if you haven't yet and take advantage of the pack. We're something in the AMA. We're just going to do a giveaway. How about that?
Yes.
It's going to work. Cindy's ready for this. Let's introduce Cindy first. Cindy, more important giveaway. I'm going to introduce Cindy first. Cindy Cruzado, Pragmatic Extraordinaire, will download her wisdom into your minds. You just have to be here and open up and be willing to accept it. Cindy, are you ready to do that?
Every day, ready to do that.
That's what she does best. She downloads wisdom. All right, Cindy, so here's the new thing we're going to try. We're going to give away a free lunch at the end of the Ask Me Anything session, and it will go to the best product-based question that we received today. It may be one of the pre-submitted ones, but it doesn't have to be. Anybody who's in the Zoom right now and you have a great question pop in, go ahead and ask that too, and that will be a candidate. There are no rules. This is completely up to the discretion of Cindy at the end. She will decide what her favorite question was of the day, and that person will win a $20 gift card to Grubhub. Lunch on us. So that'll be fun. Can't wait for that. And Cindy, are you ready for some questions? Shall we jump on in here?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Let's do it. The first one that I have is submitted by Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, I recently came up with a new feature idea that my VP seems very interested in. Nice job, Nathaniel. It's exciting and I have the potential to use this as an opportunity to stand out, but how can I best and most formally present my argument to get buy-in resources from my higher ups? Cindy, does Nathaniel sell this to the higher ups at his company?
Oh yeah, this is my favorite kind of question. When it
this is a contender for the free lunch already. Number one.
It is because this is going to use that template, that artifact that I have seen as a head of product be a career builder, right? This is that one storytelling tool. You probably know what I'm going to say, right? Product positioning. And it is the place where we take all the knowledge that we have because we've been in touch with the market, and we help everybody understand what we already know. And there are two parts to this. And if you work through both of the product positioning templates to really think through what are the problems that are part of an opportunity, how do you come up with problem-oriented capabilities to really make it make sense? And then you begin to tell your story following some pretty simple guidelines that we teach in foundations. You know, the storytelling, what is the industry problem that we found for our persona? What does the solution have to deliver? Why do they care about it? And what are we going to tell them about? And as you go through that, you're really getting your own thoughts in order. You're starting to be more cogent, more passionate. Your confidence will be up. And I'll tell you what, you will do what you're trying to do here, which is influence others. At the end of the day, that's what storytelling is all about. And these templates really help teach us as product managers how to stay away from the detail, get to the point, and really get buy-in from others, like stakeholders across our business. So absolutely be known in your team for doing it the best by practicing it.
A related question from Layla on the same being tasked with building a plan and presentation for the functionality of our new app features. Go tackling that project. Same answer for Layla, or
Well,
how should she tweak that?
if it's an opportunity, we could use positioning in lots of different places inside our company. If it is something that is a new idea for a new product, it sounds like that's what Layla's doing. New application features for a new release, we use positioning to help us really convey to everybody in our organization, marketing, sales, development, why our personas really care about it. So we start at a different place, but we use the same thinking tool to help us get everybody on the same page. That would be my recommendation for Layla as well.
Yeah. We got a question submitted here in that to me from Kim. Thank you very much, Kim. I'm going to go ahead and read it. If you want to clarify, feel free to unmute and jump in here. But Kim says, can you talk about how you define products within a portfolio? We have a sort of muddle of pieces of software that work together and support services for that software and professional services for custom work around the software. Our engineers like to define based on component software parts, but none of that matters to buyers of users, of course. How do we know what are different products and portfolios and what combos are a single product? Did you get all that, Cindy?
Well, I think so, but since you're here, I could ask you questions, right?
Do
Can.
Kim's jumping in, throwing her hat in the ring for that free lunch too. That's a good question.
No. Yeah, this is a doozy. This is a big one. Well, first of all, you kind of answered a little bit of your own question, which is, you know, what matters at the end of the day, buyers and users. But is the question more centered around kind of taking a very technical point of view and platform and trying to flip it over and make it make sense to the market? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, we sort of had this product for a long time. We've been very current client focused. Like we adopted an open source product, so keeping our current clients happy. And then we've scored some like pretty big professional services work around the products, but we're starting to talk about being more market driven. But we realized that we were having a hard time talking about any of this because we're not always talking about the same thing. And so we were sort of having a call today where we were looking at the roadmap. And we said, well, when you say product, what do you mean? And they said, well, that's not part of the product. And I'm like, well, the client's not going to buy it unless it has it. So they think of it as a single thing. But then the engineers are like, well, yeah, but we develop different parts differently. And so we realized we were sort of never talking about the same thing. And was any of the software a product if we only ever sold it with support services, or the support services a separate product from the software product. And we just realized we were never sort of using the same language to talk about the same thing.
Yeah. I have a suggestion for you, of course. Have you been to our focus class by any chance?
I just took the focus class last week. Yeah.
All right. Well, the strategy matrix is the place I would tell you to start. So the strategy matrix is that tool. And let me just tell you, it is really common, right? When we sit down with our teams, we, even if it's cross, departments, maybe even cross platform to different business units, we have a tendency to talk all day long about features and capabilities and technology. It's kind of the stuff that's part of our vernacular. And we can say things and be meaning something different. And so the question that we have to start asking more about is, who are we targeting? Who are we trying to pursue? Let's not just talk all day about what we could build, right? But let's connect it to who we're trying to do it for. And when you start to do that, it starts to help people self-correct. We're no longer talking about a feature that could be used by so many different personas in so many different industries. We're talking about something for current customers. I'm just going to use that example. Or we're talking about something that we're really targeting for competitors' customers. By answering these two questions, and then by getting into across the columns in the strategy matrix, we can start to group things that are features that we have in an existing platform, and we can group them differently to new things we would build to extend the portfolio, or things that we would have as upsell, cross-sell add-ons. We call those options. That also helps to organize people's thinking about the purpose of those features, or how we've packaged and priced them, what we're offering together. And if you lay out your portfolio or your roadmap along the 16 boxes, that's a great place to start and have that conversation. Make sense?
I think so. And that was our first instinct. We pulled up the strategy matrix and we were talking about maybe these things are add-ons. We've got an open source product. So that's technically free, except for your time. You're a developer, you have to go download it, you have to go make it work. So we've got that. And then we've got an add-on that's supporting that thing. Is that what that would be? The support services are a new option for it's a different buyer persona, right? That's somebody who's not going to do it themselves. They need to pay us to do it for them.
Right. Let me give you a simpler way to describe it, okay. Right? When we think about new options, there's a hard prerequisite to it. They are options for the core product. They're the options for the existing product. And we're not giving them away to everybody. Otherwise, they'd be in that first column and they'd be those enhancements or whatever. Options are just that, optional. Sometimes we price them, sometimes we give them away, but we are doing it on purpose to attract a certain part of our market. Maybe we give it to customers to help them connect to another system. Not everybody has the same system, so we give them different API options, as an example. Or maybe we're doing something specifically as an option to try to onboard competitors' customers. Right? That's an option, very targeted to an audience, in that case, competitors' customers. But they are connected to our existing products. And first two columns really go together.
And if the buyer is a different buyer, so it's the people who would get just the software, the only people who get the software themselves are developers, and they can have it for free. It's an open source product. But then we've got clients who pay us for the support services so that we do it for them. So it's you do need to have the other one, but the people who pay for the add-on are not the same as the people who pay for just the software. Where do they go?
Yeah. So here's a little.
It also means that we have way more of the second kind than the first kind. It's almost the new ones are the ones who are getting less because we want to adopt the open source software.
What I love about the strategy matrix, and it starts to help us visualize. We can kind of get out of our own heads, and it starts to visualize what our strategy is, or all of these other possible options that we want to talk through. I'll give you a simple kind of a thought exercise that could help when you have multiple personas here. Imagine that you have painter's tape and you're putting your strategy matrix up on a wall, right? Larger than life. Yeah. And you've got your 16 boxes, your 4 rows, your 4 columns there. Okay. And this for simplicity, let's say we have a buyer persona and a user persona. Use 2 different color sticky notes, one for the buyer and one for the user. And write down the features, capabilities, or opportunities, whatever it is. Get people to help you, write them on different sticky notes. And the color tells you which buyer or user you're talking about, and place them on the strategy matrix in the place that seems to make sense. And what you've done for yourself is you kind of visualized not only who the target is, who you're pursuing in those parts of the market, but you're starting to think about, should we do it as a feature? Should we do it as an option? What are the possibilities? And that's where you can focus. That's how you can get people to visualize it along with you and be more productive. Does that make sense? I've tried that. It's really worked.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll need to do it to see what it feels like. And see
well,
really
we have to get our hands on it to really have it make sense. And that's what we love. So try it out. Let me know how it works.
Awesome. Thank you.
Like the question.
And thank you, Kim. Good question. Good question. Not to be outdone, Jerry is submitting a question over in the chat as well. Let's take that one on now too, shall we? Jerry, feel free to jump in with any clarifications as well. I'm going to read your question out. I work in a new division of a Fortune 500 company with its own leadership team. For the past year, we've been in a chasing the shiny object syndrome with partner companies. Yes. I've been patiently advocating focusing on finding those market problems we need to, and now getting closer to market launch without clear target market. Would suggest doing get the leadership focused on a target chasing the new shiny object. Oh my goodness, got a little managing up to do there, huh, Jerry?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's an uphill battle because the leadership team consists of like 5 people. And getting them all on the same page when each one wants to chase a different shiny object is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been challenging, and it's been really rough on our product management team. So it's been throwing, and in fact, we've lost several people over the past couple months as a result, because it's been really hard on them. Not understanding what and having clarity on what our strategy and vision is.
Yeah, that I'm going to tell you, having been there, deja vu, Jerry, I have been there. Not only do you have to kind of keep the team motivated, and that is hard when it feels like whiplash, right? We're moving around, it's change every day, changing priorities. But we also have to manage, the change in priorities. Let me say one thing to you. The work that we do, which I know takes time to get to be market driven, the work that we do to pull in one place, and my favorite tool is a spreadsheet, to build a market problems table of capabilities or opportunities, whatever makes sense for you, and to start to connect the evidence to it. And by evidence, I mean individual tickets from the help desk, requests, how many times has sales mentioned it, how many times have we had people on our web, in our communities, voting it up. We have a lot of these voice of the customer programs that we could look at for evidence. The more we build that kind of evidence, the more we start to see why some things are at the top of the list with more evidence and some things are on the bottom of the list. And when an executive comes to us with a new shiny object, hopefully we're in a position, this is ideally what we're trying to get to, right? We're in a position to say, yeah, we've heard that before. But let me tell you, I know you want it at the top of the list, but let me tell you, there's 5 other things that we believe are more important than that. Let me tell you about those 5, and let's have a conversation about how these compare to each other. What you're doing in that moment is showing strategy. You're showing that you are getting more proactive in this conversation rather than feeling like you're reacting every time you're catching a new shiny object. And ultimately, when we build our resource, a tool like that, we're also showing executives that we're understanding the market perhaps better than they do. And it can feel a little competitive with executives, right? But Data at the end of the day is what's going to win. And our job is to bring the facts, and whether we influence them or not is a secondary thing, right? Our job is to be that messenger. I would, maybe pull the team together and see how quickly you could pull together a market problems table like that if you haven't already done that.
So Cindy, one of the challenges that we do have is that this is a completely different market and business from our core competency and our core business. And so this is a complete deviation from what we've done before. So a brand new venture. And so I agree with you having that evidence. And I always made it a point to get out there in the marketplace and talk to customers and be in the marketplace, and having my ear to the ground is commonplace. But over the past year with COVID, that's become really difficult. And so that has added more complexity to be able to have your ear to the ground and as to what's happening out there in the marketplace to really figure out what to do. And so the competing thing is that we can do as much market research as we possibly can, sit through webinars and attend virtual conferences, et cetera. But yet you're against leadership who have friends in the industry that pick up the phone and say, well, let me call this partner because I know we could do something with this partner because I worked with them before in a previous life, and chase that thing. And so that's the leadership team actually used to work together at previous companies. And so there's an interesting twist with our leadership team is that they used to work together. And so because they can call on personal contacts. They pull out their own Rolodex of their own personal contacts of folks in the industry and partners that they worked with before. They can count on them to gain interest and chase that. But it's every single individual direction that they're chasing. Each one has their own little pet area that they want to chase. And that's the issue at hand, compared to the evidence that we can pull as best we can.
Can you bring them into being part of the evidence rather than being on opposite sides of their evidence versus your evidence? Is there a way to be inclusive?
I'm trying. That's my next step on one initiative that I'm working on right now, where I am able to pull in a lot more evidence than other stuff that I've been working on. And so that is my next step, is to do that and then compare notes with one of the executives that he's got contacts within as well, just to compare notes and see, our collective set of data, what that looks like.
So one of the things I want to say, the strategy matrix, you're familiar with that too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Used in lots of different places, but at the end of the day, it's an alignment tool. It is useful in a situation like this, perhaps less to figure out which bit and byte and feature we should be focused on, but perhaps more to figure out where can we unify around where we're going and why. And that ultimate strategy that no matter who we're talking to at the top, they should be aligned around. And it's kind of getting that voice. You just need them to tell you what success looks like. And then you can help take all of these ideas and shape it into a suggested strategy and get them bought in. But focusing in on getting them to articulate to you what is success, maybe the strategy matrix would help you do that, because you're starting to talk about who in the market are we trying to target with this? Can we break it down a little further with segmentation? And do they all agree? Is that a possibility maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Thank you.
Give it a try. Send it to me. Let me help, right? Happy to give you feedback on it, talk about it some more. You're not in it alone. We've all been there.
Jerry, personal invitation, Cindy, to send her your progress. I heard it. Everybody else heard it too.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Wonderful. And come back to a future AMA and give us an update as well.
Okay.
I'd be curious to see how it's going for you over there. And thank you so much for those. When we ask the hard questions, it benefits other people that didn't have the guts to ask the question themselves, right? So thank you.
Right.
Thank you for that.
As we go, by the way, Kim and Jerry, if you have more questions pop up, chime in. We'll keep
Please.
going there if you like. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to jump over to this question submitted by Lily. Lily asks, what is the best way to develop a cohesive product roadmap that will align us across our multitude of teams? What's the benefit? What's the buy-in there?
When we're talking multiple teams, my mind goes right to multiple business units, maybe multiple geographies, not sure. I would love to ask, the little bit of the demographics and kind of the organization, but let's assume it's pretty diverse. I always like to start with laying out the solution matrix, which is kind of looking at our portfolio, if you like, and looking at the 4 quadrants in the solution matrix and seeing right now where our teams are investing, where we're spending our time. Are we spending our time in the A quadrant enhancing existing products? Are we spending time kind of in the B quadrant putting in refactoring or reducing technical debt, putting in some new architecture? Maybe we're putting in a whole lot of ideas that we're not real confident about, those inside out ideas. Or are we looking very crystallized and succinctly at some new C quadrant, exciting, high impact, revolutionary problems? And by just kind of laying the current portfolio out, we get a visual of where the team's time is spent. And I think that helps us go the next step, which is really to look at some of these really important big ideas that we're being asked to invest in and figure out, do we have a balance between current products and new ideas, between future infrastructure and updating existing? It gives us a roadmap and the steps become pretty clear about where you go next. So that would be my suggestion for her.
Good one. Thank you, Lily. Hope that helped. I've got a good sized one here from Robert. Cindy, I'm going to do my best to summarize here. It goes like this. I recently joined a new company, and I'm finding they include way too many people. Execs, sales, engineers, who all seem to have varying opinions when it comes to our various projects and initiative. I was wondering a couple of things. A, this is in outline format. A, how can I convey that too many chefs in the kitchen can compromise productivity? And B, how can I use all these extra heads to our advantage if they don't buy into my philosophy? So how can I get less of them in the room? But if I have to have all of them in the room, how can I use that to my advantage? That is what Robert would like to know.
He would like to know. Okay, well, I think you get a little bit of a twofer here. If you focus on the first problem and you solve that, the second one becomes less of a problem, right? So what I'm going to say is let's concentrate on clarifying roles and responsibilities. Anytime you have this kind of mentality where everybody needs to be in a room, it's usually because of the feeling that, we're not sure who's leading or who's driving or who's asking the right questions. And so that really is a cry for help from the organization to clarify who's responsible for what. Now, when you look at the Pragmatic framework, 37 activities, every one of them needs to have clear ownership. What role in the company is owning each of them? And the gap analysis workbook is a very straightforward way of sitting down and asking a couple of questions. Who owns it today? Who should own it going forward? Do we need to have a little bit of a shift? Maybe we need to balance or crystallize it. The other set of questions here kind of give us a baseline on how well we're doing it. But when you're thinking about ownership, just those first couple of questions, who's owning it today? It's surprising when we get 10 leaders in a room kind of working through every one of those 37 activities, asking those questions about who owns it, we start to surface what some of the real confusion might be. But I think you get a pretty crystallized go forward plan out of it, right? You can look, you now know which roles to contact and say, you're in charge of the launch. Right? You should be leading this, asking these questions, and you can kind of help keep people accountable. If they need help understanding what their job is all about, we're here for training on any piece of that. There's tools and templates to help them do that job. But I think if you get to crystallizing job responsibility, you can then use that to figure out who's in which meetings, who do we need to do what, who are we counting on to do different things. I'll leave it at that. I could probably talk about that all day long.
Yeah, there you go, Robert. I sure hope that helped you. We have got a question I see in the chat that came to me from Alika. Alika's joined us. Welcome back. Has a question on willingness to pay and evaluators. Alika, feel free to unmute and ask your question of Cindy.
Okay, thanks. So I've taken, I think, 4 or 5 of the Pragmatic courses, and I'm helping product managers kind of elevate and become rock stars with product leaders. So I'm actually a portfolio director. What happened is we have a product line. Because we're integrating Pragmatic framework, you know, we're not always doing things in the right order. And so there's a out-of-the-box scorecards that we're going to be offering where the product manager feels that beyond our existing client base, actually evaluators would want it, right? And so unfortunately, like I said, you know, we didn't do this willingness to pay upfront while we were solidifying the business case. We're doing it kind of after the fact. So since we're doing it after the fact, we're working, I wanted to get your feedback on our approach we're going to use. We've already enlisted the help of sales to find out who might be some evaluators that are in the sales pipeline that we might be able to do kind of a, you know, a pitch of here's kind of the product offering, here's the value, what do you think? To see whether or not they see value in it. And then if they do, you know, kind of some ballpark, you know, value in terms of financial. What do you think of that approach? Like I said, since we're kind of doing it after the fact.
So just to clarify, you're trying to determine what the market is willing to pay for a new product.
Yeah, it's out of the box scorecards. So it's, you know, it's a specific offering versus the product itself is it's a richer, fuller offering, but it would be specifically for out of the box scorecard for physician monitoring and auditing.
Okay. So a couple of things I think I would encourage you to go gather a little data. I like the interest in certainly getting out and talking to people, but maybe there's a little bit of gathering data that you already have to figure out who is it really that you're trying to estimate willingness to pay for. Do you use personas? I don't remember.
Yes, we do. Well, and so that's the interesting thing because you know, the product manager said it was a CFO, and I'm like, no, that they wouldn't find, you know, this is so specific and targeted of an audience. A CFO would be looking for millions of dollars of savings, not $10,000 or $20,000 worth of savings. So yeah, I did kind of tell them that I felt their personas needed to be tweaked a little bit.
Okay, so you have an idea who is really the target for this in terms of the buyer persona.
Okay. Yeah.
You do, right. So you
well, yeah, or we can get to that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we could get to that. Thank you.
Right.
We'll make sure we shore that up.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Now, I assume that this is a product that buyer would be perhaps evaluating competitors, you and others.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, a buyer that we want to understand, at the end of the day, who are we most compared to?
Okay.
Is there one competitor that keeps coming up at the end of the day before that decision is made by that buyer to win, to buy or not? And we call that, when we're pricing, we call that the second best alternative.
Oh, thank you. Now I remember that. Okay.
Yeah. And so this is the way of thinking that we want you to go through. Number one, who is the persona you're trying to measure willingness to pay for? Number two, who are they comparing you to?
Okay. So, okay, can we tease that out a little bit? Let's say we don't know that second best alternative because, like I said, the umbrella product is physician monitoring and auditing, right? So that you can make sure your physicians are compliant when they work in a hospital. But let's say we don't know that second best alternative in these out of the box scorecards, then what do you do?
I would do one of two things. Does that mean that you really have a group of competitors that kind of look the same? They're equivalent. We might be up against one of them or all of them, but so that's one way. You could look at them as a group, but you could actually determine willingness to pay for your persona with one competitor in mind. Go through the calculation and then do it all over again. Same persona, another competitor that you would go up against.
I see. Okay, I see. So I see what you're saying. So kind of like figure out who is that second best alternative. Okay.
Ask sales, they'll know. Who are they up against most?
Okay. And so what's interesting is, like back to, again, we're still, adopting kind of the pragmatic thinking and mindsets and one of them is, although your opinion's interesting, it doesn't count, right? And so I think the problem is the product manager felt these out of the box scorecards, your opinion, although interesting, is
Cindy's
not
got
relevant.
the mug, there it is.
Well, and I think that's the problem is the product manager deemed this as important. Now we've got spending CapEx money to fund this, and we don't even know if the client's really going to pay for this or expect it to be part of the base offering because it's not really of that great value that they would actually pay for it as like a module versus, no, we want, this is part of the base offering.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a step back now with that additional information, Alika, and I'm going to say maybe the question is not how much they will pay, but is it worth it of a problem to even solve in the first place to them? And the way we go about answering that second question is through Nahito interviews. Mm-hmm. It's less about coming up with the how much. Let's keep those two things separate. It's much more important to be super confident that if we take the time to build the solution and we have it out in the market, that they're going to want it. Yeah. If not, it's one heck of a waste of our time.
Yeah. And, like I said, we're still, these were all clinicians in our business that are acting as product managers. So they never, they didn't even know to go Google and find a framework like Pragmatic or, I think Pragmatic is really the only framework that's really, a comprehensive one. So, okay, I think you've given me really good next steps is rather than focus on willingness to pay, let's just go validate its value to evaluators because we gotta make sure the Nahito interview that there's even perceived value.
That's right.
Okay.
We're confident if you confirm that they're willing to do something about the problem, that we can help you measure the value of how much. Yeah. But let's get that first one done first. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I always love when Aleka asks questions because in the course of answering them, you feel her aha moments. Oh, that's what we need to try. That feels so good. Thank you. Thank you for that great question. Cindy, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to leave time at the end to pick our favorite question and give away a lunch today. But Lindsay has given us the perfect opportunity in chat here to do a little self-promotion. So we might do some shameless self-promotion. You'll notice Lindsay has asked, must took a credit course or certification in person pre-2020. He'd like people on our team to take some this. What are the online or virtual options, or when do you anticipate in-person courses will come back? Cindy,
Hey, I'm ready
you
to
may
get on a
know more or less than I do in marketing, but what have you heard anyway?
well, let me tell you that I'm ready to get on a plane when anybody would like me to, right? So every instructor here, we're ready to go. I think there's some environmental things that we need to make sure everybody's safe in the process. And if it takes a little
Yes.
time, then we're going to put safety first. You bet. We are ready to teach. And I understand wanting to get in the same room. But let me tell you a big aha that I have learned in the last 12 months is I have transitioned from in 2019 traveling 48 weeks in that year, 10 countries, 48 weeks, to zero travel and learning how to do what I do over Zoom. I'll tell you what, we have a very engaging, very learner-centric kind of a class going on, and people really love it. We're getting lots of great feedback. So I don't think the question for most people these days is when are we going to go back face to face? But what could we do now to actually start moving in the right direction? And we're ready, if you have deep questions about that, we're ready to answer them for you. We do it all the time and figure out what is the best answer for your team.
Awesome. And then as far as the different formats that are available, obviously in person, we love it, and we pray that it comes back again soon. For virtual formats, we've got the synchronous format, the Zoom in-person virtually format that Cindy does all the time and every time. For foundations, for the foundations, if any of the folks in your company have not taken that yet, there's also Foundations on Demand course as well, which can access both of those formats on. They're all on there, and but hopefully we'll get to see you in person sometime again soon. We miss people. We miss them all so much. Thank you, Lindsay. Cindy answered your question, but if you have any more questions, you can reach out to Cindy's inviting people to her throughout this whole session today. So how about that? I'll just take the liberty of expanding that to everyone. How about that?
So I guess there's a question you want to ask me, Eddie?
There is a question I'd like to ask you. As we wrap up here, we want to give away a lunch.
Yeah.
And we're going to give away a lunch to the best question, and that is completely arbitrarily your choice. If I can sway you at all, I would push you towards one of our in-person folks that's joined us here live. That would be really cool and special. But
no question.
Who do you think it's going to be, Cindy? Who gets the free lunch?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, there are lots of great questions today, but there's one that really pulled on a lot of, heartstrings here because I feel the pain. Jerry, your question, you get it today, okay? It's a tough situation, buddy. You're not in it alone, right? You let us know how we can help you, but yeah, you get this.
Jerry, if you would send me your email in the chat over here. You can send it just to me if you like, so we can send you out a gift card for your free lunch. Jerry wins the free lunch today because he bore his soul to us, and we feel closer to him today. So thank you very much for doing that. A reminder, if you haven't joined us for our product chat series yet, do that. The next one coming up is Tuesday, February 9th at 1:30 Eastern Time. We're going to welcome Greg Bond and Eric Wolf. They're co-principals at the marketing agency Astound. They're going to discuss crafting profitable marketing content from your customer's perspective. So join us for that one. And then, of course, join us for the next of the Ask Me Anything sessions. And that will happen every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Be here. We love having you. Jerry, I'm going to hang on here for just a second to make sure I get your email. But everyone else,
Wonderful.
Cindy, thank you so much for your wisdom. Once again, invaluable. What a resource we have in you guys coming here and helping us out. And everyone, it's Friday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And we will see you again next time.